Spofford Hall in New Hampshire. Thank you very much, John Hancock Insurance, for paying a $10,000 bill. Gee, I didn't pay a nickel. In fact, I got a $100 check that I didn't know why. So I didn't pay the 100. So it wasn't a reimbursement of the 100. So anyway, I'm what they call clean and sober, but maybe I'm still a little bit inebriated from life and some of life's pleasures, like, you know, getting on a two-wheeled vehicle or riding a two-legged vehicle.
Hey, there's a question on the screen. Let me bring it up, and we'll call the gentleman Mr. B for now. Any news on Mr. B being removed from Congress? Apparently news overnight. Now, of course, he was just at the joint session here for his address a couple of days ago after his first 100 days in office, and that was weird in and of itself. But any news on the backstory of...
What do you mean in office? What office is that? Sorry.
Oh, right. Okay.
What office is that?
All right, exactly.
The Biden show? Oh, I know. The head seat of the Biden show. Okay, I get it.
All right, we're on the same page.
Yeah. I felt like there was something that I was about to conclude on, and I diverted my own attention and didn't finish the point. Something about...
you got into your 35 years. The anniversary. Oh, a couple of things happened this week. The anniversary of your newsletter, the anniversary of being sober, and what was the last one?
I don't. There was something else. It's lingering. I can't remember. Okay, that's okay. We'll just move on. It'll probably pop into my head suddenly without any warning at all. That's what happens. That's what happens when you get old and you get weird, and you ride too many two-wheeled vehicles and you ride too many two-legged vehicles. That's what happens. And it happens, you know. Golly, I'm not looking forward to my next birthday. I tell you, I want to be around when this thing gets cleaned up. And I'm not so sure it's going to happen anymore while I'm around. That's what's really bugging the heck out of me. What was that point? I can't remember. Anyway, we're good. We're good. I think that there are... threshold. Critical mass. Okay, back 5 or 6 years ago, see, it popped in my head, John Flynn.
There you go.
5 or 6 years ago, I was saying that the dollar will continue and continue and continue until the Belt and Road, or whatever you want to call it, the Silk Road, the new Silk Road, One Belt, One Road, whatever you want to call it. I call it the Belt and Road. The Belt and Road Initiative by China gradually developed more and more non-dollar transactions, investments, and payments. Did you know that by the end of 2019, it got up to $1.3 trillion? To me, that's critical mass. I'm talking like 30, 40 different countries. Lots of projects. Just the BRI, Belt and Road projects. The trade from just the projects, like a new port facility, a new rail facility, a new bridge facility, a new big highway, a new train. The total trade completed in 2019 was 1.3 trillion. And when I was, actually, I got to be really honest here. It was like 700,000 or 600, right? 600 billion rather. 600 billion for the first half of 2019. 600 billion. And I said, golly, we're going to have about 1.2 trillion for the full year. And I thought, get ready for some critical mass. Because when you achieve critical mass, then you've got enough players to say, we're going non-dollar in trade. For oil, for commerce, for shipping, you name it. We're going non-dollar, and we can because we've got critical mass. Now, what happens if you don't have critical mass? Let's just say you got 7 countries that say, well, we got a better system, and we're going to go non-dollar. Well, they're going to be ruined by their own success because they don't have critical mass. They're going to have their own little currency. It's going to be rock solid, gold backed, and it's going to rise double in a year and a half and destroy their export trade. You've got to have critical mass to knock out the other base that used to be there, and that's the dollar. Anyway, I was on record saying in late 2019 the dollar's going to have some big trouble because they got critical mass in the non-dollar transaction and trade from the Belt and Road. And what happens? We got the Queen virus. Oh, I'm sorry, the Corona, funded by the Queen. Okay, I've got to be careful. First time I heard Corona, I thought funded by the Queen. Okay, use your head. Mm-hmm. So many people don't.
Very timely.
If you don't use your head, rent it out. Okay, so we got critical mass for discovering the dangerous devices out west where the effects could be carried by wind. We got a critical mass requirement for rescuing little people who are caught in a web down below. We got a critical mass requirement for getting rid of dangerous people for their vengeance and their continued nefarious deeds. Okay? When we get to whatever the guys in uniform think is safe on those three counts, the orange man comes back. I was hearing July 4th, now I'm hearing August and September. When I heard July 4th, I said to the person, yeah, right, okay, and it won't be very hard to have a delay. So maybe Labor Day. And then I had another joke with a different person who said, I heard it's July. I said, what year? The orange man's going to come back in July. I said, what year?
What year?
There's an extraordinary danger out there. I'll tell you one of my most difficult questions to answer, and I had a guy cancel the newsletter over this issue. He said, I want a good answer why Trump is advocating that people take the jab. Mm-hmm. And we talked about this. In fact, we talked about it at length in the pay-per-view.
Right. So folks in there will get into the percentages of the three scenarios that Jim was putting forward, and simply we can't talk about it here without risking this being yanked also. So if you're interested in all of that, please go check it out. You can find it at beyondthemystic.net/pay-per-view is where you can check out that episode. Well, okay.
I'm not sure.
We can touch part of that here, and it was your assertion that big pharma and mainstream media were soon going to thrive on this narrative breaking and the resulting rage in the mass populace. Talk about that a little bit. Where is that coming from? What are you hearing, and what do you see happening, and how does that unfold here moving forward?
I don't know how it unfolds. What I'd like to see is that what is in progress continues without interruption. There's something going on by a German doctor. He's instituted a class action against the WHO, and that's worth watching. But I just don't know. I have a feeling that, and I got my first piece of evidence on this about 4 or 5 days ago. One of my good buddies, very smart guy, a jackass colleague, but he remains in the shadows a lot. He's not a day-to-day guy who makes a lot of contributions on the currency and the oil price and the yield control, YCC, yield control, what's it called? Yield curve control. But this guy, he's been researching the, let's just say the sickness issue. And he said, Jim, there are doctors all across the United States now who are giving a certificate for just HCQ and a bunch of vitamins. And I said to him, well, it's not exactly a placebo, but it's close. It's not like a saline solution and vitamin C. I actually know somebody here who got exempted. Got exempted from the jab because the person who's not quite my age, has a diabetes problem. So, exempt, not necessary. I'm going to win an exemption myself. I'm not going to tell you about what, but I've got a physical condition. And it's not, it's not being a former lover of marijuana. I love calling it marijuana. Marijuana could be spelled with an H or a J. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Well, now you do. In Spanish, they use an H or a J. I don't know why. But I'm going to get exempted. And let me explain something, why it's better to get exempted than it is to get a false certificate of vaccination. If you get a certificate, they'll come back for round 2. You get exempted, you're exempted. You're not. You're out of the sequence. You're out. So.
Right. And who knows also if you get a false certificate, what type of legal ramification if this network of people who
later.
That's another problem. Yeah.
For instance, that doctor got arrested, and all of the patients are now subjected. So I don't want anything fake at all. I'm a real guy, and I have a real condition, and it's that I have a very sensitive heart. I cry over really difficult situations, and therefore I can't get the vaccine. That's not it, but I wish it were.
I wish it were that easy. Paris, yes, is asking a question. We can't answer that on this show here without being hearing about the placebo and some of these details. We did go into detail here on this episode here. It's called the Jim Willie Uncensored, April 27, 21. And if you scroll down to the bottom, we get into all of these topics here, which are included, so you can have an idea before you view this episode if you're interested. And there we talk about the placebos and the percentages of the scenario that Jim is putting forward as to why Mr. T was pushing the jab here. So that is a big conversation part of the show. Let
me just say something to people who are curious about this whole topic. Just ask your doctor for the independent analysis and clinical trials of the vax. Okay? Just take it from there. Where's the independent analysis? What are the results? What's the clinical trial? What was submitted to the FDA? And just I'd like to see it all. Like to see it all.
And you know,
and also, don't forget, get that isolated virus, because the CDC made some comments about that too. Yep. Because that's how you make a vaccine, right? You isolate the virus, and then it becomes attenuated, and you make a vaccine. You know the origin of the word vaccine? This is kind of fun.
Stop saying it. We're going to get triggered.
No, it's not dangerous.
Okay.
It's from the Latin word for cow.
Really?
Well, in Spanish, it's vaca.
Vaca.
V-A-C-A. Vaca. So the vacuna is from the vaca because the cows were used as test subjects.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
A long time ago, yeah. Vacuna, vax. Just ask your doctor, I'm sure you've got the independent analysis there. And what's the clinical trial results? I mean, isn't that the way you get things done in FDA?
It's funny. Any better procedure, health procedure you're going to go in for, everybody recommends that you get at least a second opinion, if not a third opinion. But here, apparently, we're not even allowed to talk about second or third opinion. What we're allowed to talk about is what the mainstream narrative wants to push and nothing else, and don't ask questions and pay your taxes and, be a good citizen.
Well, that's why I cited the WHO.
Yeah.
In the April hectic letter, I have a featured graphic from the WHO. This goes up and down and up and down. It's an influenza every year. And something happened last year. Looks like it stopped. Okay. We're going to reveal this gigantic gimmick, and it's going to really piss off a lot of people. I love how Cliff High says that they're going to be chasing down doctors for years. I think just my opinion. I think that the industry of medicine and pharma might have the great majority of all their assets seized by the time this is all done. That would be quite interesting. I'm not talking about the National Institute of Health. I'm talking about Johns Hopkins University. I'm talking about, pig farm corporations.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, folks, I think we're about there for tonight's episode. We wanted to give you a sneak peek of this pay-per-view episode that Jim and I recorded a couple of days ago. There's more topics in there, of course. I'll bring up the list of topics on the screen for you guys to read here. And there is a, is it still on here? Expires May 1st. Let me go fix that right away. I'll give you this coupon code back here for a day or two as you get started and give this a try. So hopefully that works out for you guys. And the coupon code will be Jackass10. Of course, I'll give you another 10% off of this. So as soon as I finish this episode, I'll go back in and initiate that coupon code for you guys. Jim, man, let me ask you this last question as we finish. How did it feel not having to dance around like we're doing right now here on this platform when we recorded this episode, and why should the audience take a try at the piece to listen to it?
It felt free. It felt like I did something back in 1998. I had a friend whose father owned a property, a nice house in Oysterville on Cape Cod. And he said, Jim, come on down Friday. Come on down Thursday night. Miss the traffic on Cape Cod. Oh, you got to miss the Friday night traffic. You got to miss. And when I got there the next morning, he said, let's just go do something strange. We ran barefoot on the golf course. That's what it felt like. I'm telling you, I have never run so fast because you don't have the weight of shoes and you're firm on the footing. The fairway is very nice. It was a nice golf course. The fairway was like a green, just a good quality, not like the one I grew up on. By the way, I was a shitty golfer. That's okay. I was a good baseball player. Okay, it felt free, John. It felt free, and it felt like, wet feet. It's an exhilarating feeling, but also there's a second side to that. A deep desire that a lot of people saw it or will see it because we put a lot of effort into it. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be value in the future for uncensored. And I can assure you, this censoring is not going to last forever. The censoring is to cause a reaction and to display the players. Yeah. They've come out in full view. Jenny, golly, are you busy next weekend?
That one was a hot episode too. I have to admit that she got me blushing once or twice. So folks, if you want to check out this new library of uncensored content, I'm blushing already just thinking about Jenny. Go check it out at beyondmystic.net/pay-per-view. And I want to say also, if you're already a member of our Patreon Insider Access Pass, you have access to all of these videos already, so you don't have to go and pay for a pay-per-view. So if you're thinking of also watching maybe one or more of these episodes and you want to check out more of our content here, please do consider checking out the Insider Access Pass here at patreon.com/beyondmystic. All the links are in the description box below.
Let's also mention golden-jackass.com. My flagship, my newsletter is a flagship. This website's been around for 17 years now. Amazing. Issue number 205, just finished. I did something new with this issue, John Claude. I had a section called High-Level Perceptions. Mm-hmm. Because I feel as though, we've been at this for a year. People have been dumbed down severely. People are being tricked. A lot of data, not just economic, has been falsified. Right. We're accustomed to economic data, but I don't think people are too accustomed to other data being falsified. And I just thought, there are 15, 18 different, I think it was 18 in all, 18 topics. Like, the sports world. We now have the second season of baseball and the second season of basketball, and they're using the same test, whether somebody is sick and therefore ineligible. Okay, not too sure about the validity of that test. So now we know that Major League Baseball is, how shall I say, not quite on the up and up.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're getting LeBron James being mocked for some of his stupidity. We're going to see a lot of things happening in the next few months. And there was a news anchor who said that they're running out of people willing to be euthanized. So that was quite interesting. A news anchor that was with an American type accent. You know, I don't want to say an American English accent. When you talk about accents, you got to be careful. He had an accent that indicated the United States. It was not a Canadian accent. It was an American, U.S. type accent. I'm pretty good at detecting regions for accents. You know, like Texas versus the South, Great Lakes, you know, Upper Midwest, Boston. I got to a level, John Clyde, where it's quite fun. I had been in Boston about 3 years, and I finally started figuring out if someone was from inner city Boston, Cambridge, or someone was up in the Merrimack Valley toward Lowell, or someone was down south toward Providence, or someone was just from Maine. I could detect the differences in the accents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like, you know, park my car and go to the Fenway Park. Okay. No, it's a lot different. It was like the Merrimack Valley Boston accent up Lowell. It's about 30 miles north. You're going there? And in Boston, they say, you're going there? More native, going there? Okay.
Going at the bar.
Very interesting. Okay. You know, it's a lot of fun, but I could detect, okay, that's pretty basic. That's an American U.S. accent. So, boy, they quickly changed that to not from euthanized. Oh, immunized. Yeah, right. Golly, I don't think we've seen much immunization in the last few years.
Uh-huh. All righty. Hey, folks, if you want to consider giving Jim here a tip, you can use his Theta wallet. It's on the screen now, and of course, it's in the description box below as well.
It's about to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're going to disrupt the entire. Oh, this is rich. John Claude, let me add some things.
Okay, let's do the last one.
Okay. It's going to disrupt a lot of plans out there. Okay, if you're looking at smart cities and you're looking at the future of the internet, you hear a lot about microwave and 5G, extra intensity, 5G, microwave. Okay, Theta Labs has a solution where it's not going to be 5G. It's going to be disruptive and knock 5G right on their ass. It's going to be from distributed nodes. Like for instance, overnight, coldjackass.com doesn't have a lot of traffic. I can rent it out in the middle of the night for Asian use. To do what? Games or whatever. I can host a lot of different things virtually. Okay, this is what Theta is all about. They're going to expand the internet bandwidth.
Okay, well, we're about done. I'm going to start the video now. If you want to watch the rest of this Jim Willie video, it's on YouTube under Beyond Mystic, and with Jean-Claude, and you'll be able to watch it there. You can watch the whole thing. It's a good video. I would recommend you watching it. Jim Willie's always got some interesting stuff to talk about. Anyways, we're going to get started with our presentation today. And it's going to be about this afternoon. It's going to be about the right to keep and bear arms. And there's been some I've learned recently that it's all about words. And we're going to go through this presentation. If anybody has any questions, ask them in the chat, and I'll be checking the chat periodically. So that to answer your questions. So first of all, whoops, I'm not a liar. Well, I'm in a lawyer. No, I'm in a liar. You should never take my word for anything. You should always do your own research, and I provided references to aid you in your research, but I don't know everything. And I'm certainly open to any other ideas that people might have. Everything's an illusion. The matrix is real. There's 4 types of people you'll meet in your life. There's the people who try to wake up the slaves. There's the slave masters. There's the people who have no idea they're slaves. And there's the people who like being slaves. Which one are you? Do you really know for sure? Are you who you think you are? If you can see through the illusion, then you are the solution. Everything's an illusion. If the people do not know their basic rights and freedoms, how can they know when or if their rights and freedoms are being infringed? Never forget the men who started this country were marijuana-growing, whiskey-drinking, tax-evading rebels who left their beds at night to shoot at the pigs. George Washington was a hemp farmer. All tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the medical, pharmaceutical, industrial complex. I don't trust the military industrial complex. I don't trust the mainstream media. I don't trust the bankster criminal cabal that owns the government, owns the medical, pharmaceutical complex, owns the military industrial complex, and owns the mainstream media. And if you call me a conspiracy theorist, I don't trust you. Government is not reason, it's not eloquence, it is force. Like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. So this video is going to be about trigonometry. I studied trigonometry. If you're afraid to speak out against tyranny, you are already a slave. If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or arms. Crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were ever our countrymen. Well said, Samuel Adams. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. Whenever the people are well informed, they can be trusted with their own government. An informed citizenry is at the heart of a dynamic democracy. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's the Second Amendment. You know, they debated on the text of those amendments. Article 9 an amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That one, in my opinion, is the best one, because that one talks about our common law rights, because our common law rights are unlimited. The power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution or prohibited to it by the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. And the 10th Amendment, that's another good one. History is clear that the first 10 amendments to the Constitution were adopted to secure certain common law rights of the people against invasion by the federal government. At common law, your rights are unlimited. Educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. If once the people become inattentive to public affairs, you and I and Congress and assemblies and judges and governors shall all become wolves. It seems to be the law of our general nature in spite of individual exceptions. If a nation expects to be ignorant and free in a state of civilization, it expects what never was and never will be. The Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And in 1933, Hitler appointed Hermann Goering Minister of the Interior. His first orders was to defund and eliminate police departments so that they would not interfere with his brown shirts, whose mission it was to riot, burn, beat up, and kill citizens in an effort to sway elections. Gee, that sounds like what's going on today. And then they buy the election. This is the Department of Justice website. Talks about firearms. Possession or receipt of firearms. You know, in the law, it's interesting because everything's about words. It doesn't say possession or receipt of an arm. It says possession or receipt of a firearm. They're calling them firearms and weapons. And I've heard of people that will get charged with a firearm charge, and they'll submit an affidavit into the court saying it's not a firearm, it's not a weapon, but it is an arm, and I have the right to keep and bear arms. And the case goes away. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Again, it's all about words. They couldn't possibly call it an arm because that would be perjury of oath. So they will never call it an arm. They'll call it a firearm, and if you don't object to it, then you volunteer. It's color of law. Color means an appearance, a semblance, or a simulacrum as distinguished from that which is real. A prima facie or apparent right, hence a deceptive appearance, a plausible assumed exterior, concealing a lack of reality, a disguise, or a pretext. It's a lie. They're Satanists. They're liars. They're thieves. They're perjuring their oath, but they don't want to get caught, so they make up a new name, a new word. Colorable. That which is in appearance only and not in reality what it purports to be, hence counterfeit, feigned, having the appearance of truth. It's a lie. In my opinion, we the people need to start stretching some necks, and that'll put an end to it. Color of law means the appearance or semblance without the substance of legal right. Misuse of power possessed by virtue of state law and made possible only because wrongdoer is clothed with authority of state is action taken under color of law. U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. These are all D.C. citizens, and they're outside of their territory. Maybe we ought to stretch some of their necks for them. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 says to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district not exceeding 10 miles square. So where do they get off in Texas? And then it talks about and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature. Well, I can tell you that there's a lot of quote unquote federal territory in Texas that there's no, the consent of the legislature means that there's some land that's been ceded to the federal government by the state legislature. And none of that has happened in Texas. So again, they got no business there. And it's certainly, they got no business using their federal codes there. And all state codes are actually federal codes. That's the lie. That's why we, the people, need to step up and start stretching some necks. This Constitution and the laws of the United States, which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made, or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the constitutional laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. That's the Supremacy Clause, Article 6, Clause 2. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. That's the 9th Amendment. At common law, we have unlimited rights. Every citizen and freeman is endowed with certain rights and privileges to enjoy which no written law or statute is required. These are fundamental or natural rights recognized among all free people. As a general rule, men have the natural right to do anything which their inclinations may suggest, if it be not evil in itself and no way impairs the rights of others. My book is now available. It's about Trump. It's entitled "Trump, a True American Patriot or Not?" Mike Blackwell actually asked me to write the book. And I actually had the book written in about 2 weeks. But then Mike Blackwell had to babysit me through the process of getting it published. And so he's on the book because, he's getting credit for babysitting me through the whole process to get it published. Anyways, it's about the deep state, who they are, where they came from, how they got there. Some of the stuff is going to be in this presentation today. There's two national governments. One operates within the Constitution, the other one does not. If you look in the Articles of Confederation, it says in Article 1, it says, quote, "The style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America." And if you look on a land patent, or even on a Federal Reserve note, or even a silver certificate before they had Federal Reserve notes, it said the United States of America. Then what happened is in 1861, the Southern states walked out of Congress and they ceased to have a quorum. And Lincoln ordered them back under executive authority. And they've been operating under executive authority ever since. And now all those people are dead. So I'm not sure that they can even reconvene Congress. I think that, I'm not sure. I think that, we'll continue on here. I think that in 1933, what happened is the government went bankrupt. That in 1871, first of all, in 1871, Congress set up a corporation called United States of America. You'll find that on your passport. You'll find it on Silver Eagles. You'll find it on Air Force One. You'll find it all over the place. And so then what happened is in 1933, that corporation went bankrupt. It got seized by its creditors. That is going to be in this presentation. And it's now owned and operated by somebody. And they're operating it as a criminal racketeering enterprise. And that's what Trump is dealing with. I don't know how many of you have heard of Jerome Corsi, or know who Jerome Corsi is? I'm just looking at the text here to see if anybody's got any questions for me. I don't see any. Anyways, Jerome Corsi was indicted in the Mueller investigation and for lying to the FBI. And you know how they like to make it up as they go along. Anyway, so he was indicted, and what happened is his wife told him that she would rather come and visit him in jail than have him plea bargain to something he didn't do. And so he refused to plea bargain it. And he's a pretty smart guy. He's got a PhD in political science. He's written a bunch of books. He's a Christian. And so he refused to back off. And so what happened is they dropped the charges. And so there's a YouTube video. He's got a YouTube channel. There's a YouTube video where he says that he was visited in 2015 by 5 generals. And the 5 generals told him that there's a group of generals in the Pentagon that were going to overthrow Obama. And he said, well, you can do that if you want, but you might want to think about going and talk to Donald Trump first. And so 3 months later, he gets a phone call. They decided not to overthrow Obama because Donald Trump had agreed to run for president. And so I think, you know, I do aerospace engineering consulting. I helped design the hydraulic system on the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter. And so everything they taught me to do was to make sure I support everything that I do. And so that book is full of all sorts of court citations, a lot like these presentations I do here now. Anyways, that book is full of all sorts of court citations, law dictionary definitions, international treaties, all sorts of stuff to support what I'm saying. But there is a few things that's my opinion, not much. I'd say the book is about 95% provable facts. Anyways, there's some of it that's my opinion. And it's my opinion that the entire Trump administration is a giant military psyop. Did you know that there's a war college in the Pentagon? Most people don't know that. There is a war college. If you look on any officer's resume, especially the officers that have been there for a long time, they'll have something in it about the war college. Maybe more than one thing. They study warfare. That's their job, and that's what they should be doing. So they, and the most important part of warfare is, why did an inferior force defeat a superior force? So I think that the entire Trump presidency, even and it continues to this day, if you listen to that Jim Willey video, that will confirm that Trump is the president. If you listen to that Penny Kelly video that we watched, it was either yesterday or the day before, that will confirm that Trump is the president and that he is in the process of restoring the republic. And it's all a giant military psyop. They don't want America to turn into another Bosnia. And so they don't want people killing each other in the streets and that kind of thing. So they want to make it as peaceful of a transition as possible. And but the deep state isn't cooperating. And why should they, I guess? Anyways, they're Satanists. There's a website called Deagle.com that showed the population of the United States in 2025 being at 100 million people. Well, right now it's 350 million. That means they want to kill off about 250 million of us. And so, again, the military is trying to make it as peaceful a transition as possible. So the important thing here is that I don't know how many of you have heard of Howard Hughes. This is another thing that's my opinion. I can't prove it, but I believe it's true. Don't have any evidence. But I believe that Howard Hughes, I don't know if you remember Howard Hughes, he was hiding out all the time. This was back, I guess he died in the 70s or 80s.
76.
1976, I'm told. Anyways, the he was made a billionaire from the Second World War. He had Hughes Aircraft Corporation, Hughes TV, Hughes Airline. There was Hughes everything. Anyways, he was hiding out all the time. He was worried about being poisoned. He was living at the top floor of the of this one of the casinos in Vegas, and they wouldn't play the TV that he wanted to watch, and so he bought the hotel, and so that he could control what was on the TV, so he could watch what he wanted to watch. Anyways, so I think that he was. I think this is my opinion again. All of that is well known. It's my opinion that the reason he was hiding out is because all billionaires get approached by the New World Order crowd and they get told, you're going to go along with our program or you're going to turn up dead. And he didn't want to go along with their program. And I think the same thing happened to Trump. Again, I have some evidence, not much, but a little bit. I think the same thing happened to Trump because the evidence is there was a helicopter crash in 1984. And 3 of his executives got killed, and he was one of them. No, I'm sorry. He wasn't one of them. He missed that flight. He canceled out at the last minute. And so he was supposed to be one of them. And I think that he knows what the real dangers are. And so, and I think that he is working to restore the Republic. Anyways, I can't prove it, but you know what really I like about him so much is because they hate his guts with a vengeance. They hate everything he does, no matter what it is. And that makes me like him. So, but again, I have no proof, but my book talks about who the deep state are, how they got there, their history, and it's provable history. I can show in international documents their history going back to 1213. King George financed both sides of the War of Independence. The deep state was involved in the War of Independence. Anyways, you'll see who the deep state is as we go through this presentation, or who's behind it. Who's behind it all? Anyways, this is the back of the book, and I didn't write this. But the publisher wrote it, and I think that this right here says it all. Well, we'll read the whole thing. It says, in Trump, the true American patriot, Glenn Fern and Mike Blackwell, reveal the depths of corruption, deceit, and manipulation infesting our political system for hundreds of years, regardless of political affiliation. Read the hard evidence that exposes how our elected officials sold Americans into slavery. Understand the Founding Fathers' true intent when they formed our Republican form of government. Discover the influence of the Satanic Roman cult in our politicians and political system. Does Donald Trump want to transfer power back to we the people? In Trump, you will see the great battle that is upon us. Well said. Boy, I couldn't have said it better. Anyways, my book is available on Amazon if you want to buy it on Amazon. But if you buy it on my website, you'll get it for the same price and I'll autograph it for you. And so I prefer you buy it on my website. I make more money at it there too, but I don't charge any more than Amazon. And it'll be autographed. If you want the book autographed, if you have a special autograph that you want me to say, something you want me to say, make sure you put it in that when you pay for it. Or send me an email or something so that I'll know, and I'll be happy to do that for you. Anyways, do you want to know the origins of the deep state? Who's behind it? It's in the book. Do you want to know why it's called a Trump administration? It's in the book. Do you want to know what an administration is? It's in the book. Do you want to know how Trump came to be president? Well, I think we already talked about that just now. Do you want to know who owns Congress? It's in the book. We're going to actually see that here in a few minutes. Do you want to know why they're called law enforcement officers? It's in the book, but we talked about it earlier today. It's because they're enforcing the martial law. You want to know how you become a slave? It's in the book. Do you want to know what the root cause of the War of Independence was? It's in the book. It's the same thing that's going on now. Do you want to know why every president goes to visit the Pope on their first international trip? It's in the book. Oh, look at that. That's the first international trip. Obama and the pimp are sitting there laughing and chuckling and having a great old time. And boy, the pimp doesn't look too happy about Trump, does he? I think it's because he knows justice is coming. In reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. I think Trump is going to definitely go down as amongst Jefferson. Certainly the same caliber in Washington, for sure. Absolutely. Maybe even better. I don't know. I hate to say he's better, but I think he's certainly going to go down equal. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And that's Jefferson's seal. That's, they say, they say that's Jefferson's seal. And the seal shows in the middle, there's that pillar of fire. On the left there's the children of Israel on the bank. And in the middle is the Egyptian army being destroyed. A society whose citizens refuse to see and investigate the facts, who refuse to believe that their government and their media will routinely lie to them and fabricate a reality contrary to verifiable facts, is a society that chooses and deserves the police state dictatorship it's going to get. True, but I disagree that it deserves it. That's Satanism, if you think about it. Let him who wishes to be deceived be deceived. They're all Satanists. Thou shalt not curse the deaf or put a stumbling block before the blind. And that's essentially what these Satanists, when they lie to you, that's what they're doing. They're putting a stumbling block before you and you don't know what the heck it is. They're lying to you. That's exactly what they're doing. I have a few things against thee, because thou hast there them that hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to cast a stumbling block before the children of Israel. That's Revelations 2 and 14. These news media are going to get their judgment day. It's coming. Cliff High says they're going to have to hire bodyguards because there's going to be people assaulting them. That no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way. Romans 14 and 13. When the rights of the least of us are violated, we're all diminished. Ye are the father of your father, the devil, and the lusts of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he's a liar and the father of it. But the fearful and the unbelieving and the abominable and whoremongers, murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers, that's the pharmaceutical drug pushers, and all idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. Necessity is the plea of every infringement of human freedom. It is the argument of tyrants. It's the creed of slaves. Tyrants say, oh yeah, we have to do this. And the slaves say, yep, you got to do it. Make us your slave. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a Republican form of government. So how do you know what a Republican form of government is? Well, I can tell you what it's not. First of all, it's not international law. And the reason I know that is because of this. This is Dred Scott versus Sanford. But in considering the question before us, it must be borne in mind that there is no law of nations standing between the people of the United States and their government, and interfering with their relation to each other. The powers of the government and the rights of the citizens under it are positive and practical regulations, plainly written down. The people of the United States have delegated to it certain enumerated powers and forbidden it to exercise others. So again, that's we the people. So there's no law of nations. That means there's no martial law. And that's what is all over the place, is the martial law. The wars and the martial law. It's continuous wars and martial law. And so there's no martial law. I know there's no star chambers. And actually, a Republican form of government is government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that's in most places in America, I don't think that exists. Although there's probably a few, and it's not because it's a place, but because of the people, and they refuse to be enslaved. But like there's some cities in Florida that you're required to have arms. Love a place like that, that's for sure. Don't have any crime rate in those cities. The purpose of a Republican form of government is to shield we the people from international law. Do you vote without declaring yourself one of the slaves? Again, some more deception. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by Congress outside and independently of that instrument. And that's Downs versus Bidwell, U.S. Supreme Court, 1901. So that's one of their deceptions, is they hold out this other thing, this corporation, this bankrupt corporation, as a government, when really it's not. It's a corporation. The style of this confederacy shall be the United States of America. That's Articles of Confederation, Article 1. Remember, we talked about that earlier. And there's the top of a passport where it says United States of America. That's the unconstitutional corporation. And they have to do that because it'd be treason for the government to be forcing people to have a passport, or even offer them a passport. They can't, because it's treason. It'd be breach trust. That's treason, is what breach trust, because we the people are the government. A passport defined. A passport is a written document given to a person or persons by a commander of belligerent forces, authorizing him or them to travel unmolested within the district occupied by his troops. Passports are issued by the State Department or a similar office in other countries to diplomatic agents and others entering or traveling in foreign countries, which are the same general character as those issued during war. The latter should, when practicable, have a photograph of the bearer attached, and that's taken from the Rules of Land Warfare, 1914 edition. Passports, Safe Conduct, Safeguards, and Cartels, Chapter 7, Section 4, Article 276, page 100. There's a silver certificate. Okay, so that's a silver certificate. It's not a Federal Reserve note. But notice it says the United States of America, the United States of America. It's all block capital letters. I tend to wonder whether it's a separate corporation. It's not the Articles of Confederation. Okay, so you have to understand that if you go up to the Articles of Confederation that we talked about, that's a trust indenture. And it creates a trust. And that's why it's treason for them to perjure their oath of office. That's breach of trust. Treason is a breach of trust. And so, but this one, I suspect that because it's got a hold, it's got to basically like have some silver, a bunch of silver to back up all of these silver certificates that are issued. And so these silvers need to be kept in a vault, and somebody's got to pay for the vault. And so that's why it would probably be a corporation with the same name. And but it says silver certificate. This certifies that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America $1 of silver payable to the bearer on demand. Copies of these documents can be found on my website, linked under my YouTube videos. For a complete set of YouTube videos with private information shares, a DVD with over 50 searchable law dictionaries, and other books and forms, contact me privately. Donations to support this work are appreciated. I prefer gold or silver coin, but as an extremely less desirable alternative, I can accept the IOUs, the military script, the fake money, the Federal Reserve notes, the PayPal gifts, the checks, the money orders. Send me an email for particulars. So, remember we talked about it going bankrupt, right? Well, this is United States Congressional Record, March 17, 1993, volume 33. It's an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1. Now think about this for a second. It was done by President Roosevelt. It would have been treason for him to bankrupt the trust, okay? So he could not. That's the reason the trust never owed anything. They have to set up that unconstitutional corporation to borrow money and to pay debt. And the trust never owed anything, and the trust can't borrow anything because they can't force it to pay it back. And so the banks wouldn't ever loan anything to the trust. Has to be even today. If you go and if you have property that's in trust and try to get a loan on it, they won't. What'll have to happen is you'll have to be your property, and you'll have to be the guarantor. There'll have to be some man or woman that's a guarantor. Anyways, it's an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act, March 9, 1933, 48 Stat 1, Public Law 89-719, declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent. HJR 192, 73rd Congress in session, June 5, 1933. Joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolve the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental officers, and departments. And it's further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. And that's U.S. Congressional Record, March 17, 1993. The United States federal government exists today in name only. And on the same date, March 9, 1933, on the same date, since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the president may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways control the lives of all American citizens. A majority of the people of the United States has lived all their lives under emergency rule. For 40 years, freedoms and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution in varying degrees have been abridged by laws brought into force by states of national emergency. And that's U.S. Senate Report number 93-549, dated November 19, 1973. Do you think anything has changed? So then really, if you think about it, it's 73, 83, 93, 03, 13, another 45 years. So it's 85 years it's been going on. More than that. 90 years, almost 90 years. In 2 years, it'll be 90 years. Within 20 years, this country is going to rule the world. Kings and emperors will soon pass away, and the democracy of the United States will take their place. When the United States rules the world, the Catholic Church will rule the world. Nothing can stand against the Church. And that's Roman Catholic Archbishop James E. Quigley in the Chicago Daily Tribune, May 5th, 1903. So you know who owns the Congress, don't you? There it is, right there. It's the Roman cult. Roman conquest. Now this red text here is kind of hard to read. So I've got it down in the next slide. So we're going to read them in a clockwise rotation, starting with this one, and we'll read around. Actually, that's counterclockwise. Yep, it's counterclockwise. Counterclockwise rotation. Starting with here and going around. This one is pointing at this military staff right here. So Roman Achaea military staff carried in battle by all Roman commands, planted on all conquered nations. See, there it is right there, and it's pointing at that staff right there. That's the arrow. And then this here is pointing at Biden. Okay, so this is 24th of September 2015. This one here is pointing at Biden, who was vice president at the time. Devout Roman Catholic, honorary degree from Jesuit Scranton University. Okay, and then this one here is pointing at these two Roman fascists here. This text right here. Roman bundle of rods bound to a weapons, symbolizing subservient under the rule of a single man. And then this one right here is pointing at the speaker at the time. Is that John Boehner, John Boner, or whatever his name was? Devout Roman Catholic, trained by Jesuits, installed first Jesuit chaplain to the house. So you see what's going on, don't you? There's a picture that's a lot clearer, and the arrows are pointing at the fascists and the Roman staff. These are the fascists, and this is the Roman staff planted on all conquered nations. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. He wants to make sure that you're unarmed. He wants to make sure that it's nice and easy for him to enslave you. Look at that nice smile he's got in his face. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes duty. I do accept crypto donations. Send me an email. I give out a Bitcoin address. I can accept other cryptos too. Okay, so we'll keep moving along here. Sad will be the day when the American people forget their traditions and their history and no longer remember that the country they love, the institutions they cherish, and the freedom they hope to preserve were born in the throes of armed resistance to tyranny and nursed in the rugged arms of fearless men. No joke. The Congress shall have power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. Are you property? So you got to think about that for a minute. Are you subject to regulations? If you're subject to regulations, then you're property. State of New Jersey is subject to federal regulations, so they're territory and property. Are you property? U.S. citizens are property. They're subject to regulations. My contact information is sovereigntyinternational.wordpress.com. My website is sovereigntyinternational.fyi. My email address is engineerwin@yahoo.com. My YouTube profile is Sovereign Living. My Facebook community page, I deleted it due to censorship on Facebook. My Facebook private group, Sovereignty International, is being deleted. I haven't been there in months. I'm not interested in going there. Facebook is a has-been. My free lists, the Yahoo deleted all their groups and everything, so I'm not on Yahoo, but I am on free lists. I got a group on free lists called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants and one on Google called Administrating-Your-Public-Servants. Follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Although Twitter has basically blocked my profile, I'm going to have to file a war crimes complaint against them. Follow me on Steemit, Sovereignty International. I've got a library profile, I got a Patreon, and I have a MeWe group. Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. Therefore, non-resistance to tyrants is obedience to Satan. Well said. Woohoo. Right on. That's exactly the truth. So who is your master? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Engineer Win. Don't forget to follow me on Steam at Sovereignty International. Don't forget to like this video. Don't forget to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you're notified when there's a new upload. And on Steam it, don't forget to vote and make your comments. And there's the front page of my channel. The subscribe button's already clicked. The bell is not clicked. The arrow is pointing at the bell. And once you click the bell, it'll look like it's vibrating. I have exclusive content available on my website and on Patreon. My website has 2 subscription levels, and I accept cryptocurrencies. The basic subscription level is $29.99 a year for the videos only, and $49.99 a year for the videos plus unlimited consultations. But I'm not a liar. Well, I mean a lawyer. Well, I mean a liar, actually. But I can tell you what I would do under certain circumstances and where to find the forms. Now, there's limitations on my consultations, too, because I don't do voice. It's going to have to be email, and I don't review documents or anything like that. If you want me to do that kind of stuff, then it's going to be extra. The only power that the New World Order Satanists have over us is through fraud and deception, and my agenda is to expose it for all our benefit, but I cannot fight all the battles. I need other people knowing what the real issues are. And actually, you know, really, given what's going on nowadays, well, we're going to talk about that later. Some of my exclusive content is Arlington Private Information Share, Land D training. There's 3 videos on that, I think. Estoppel certificates training, foreclosure estoppel certificates training, corporate denial training, toll roads notice and demand training, invoice training, notice of void judgment training, revocation of signature training, third-party witness training, federal habeas corpus training. There's revocation of voter registration. There's criminal complaint training. And there's probably 3 or so of those, and there'll probably be more. There's lawsuit training. There's 1 of those, and there'll be more. There's other training, the Northeast Private Information Share videos. The other training would be, you know, if there's any requests, I might put something up, but it depends on whether it's within the scope of what I'm trying to do with this channel. And maybe it's something I've already done too. All forms, files, and other instructions are available free, linked on my videos and on my website. All exclusive content's available on my website. You can buy a subscription there now, and on Patreon. It's on Patreon. Now, all of my videos, or almost all of my videos, there's a page on my website, free videos. It's identified as free videos. There's a page on my website that you can go to that has all of my YouTube videos, links to them. So they're organized by topics. They're a lot easier to find that way. So I would recommend that you basically do your study from my website. That way you can study by topic, you know, and because on the YouTube, they don't necessarily bring up, they will definitely don't bring up all my videos next as suggested videos. And whereas on my website, that's all that's up there is just my videos. It's up to you. This is 2 years after the Declaration of Independence. George III, Chapter 12, 2 years, 1778, after the Declaration of Independence. Whereas taxation by the Parliament of Great Britain for the purpose of raising revenue in His Majesty's colonies, provinces, and plantations in North America has been found by experience to occasion great uneasiness and disorders. Well, no shit, Batman, that from and after the passing of this act, the King and Parliament of Great Britain will not impose any duties, tax, or assessment, whatever, payable in any of his colonies, provinces, or plantations in North America or the West Indies, except only such duties as it may be expedient to impose for the regulation of commerce. Taxes are tribute. Taxes caused the War of Independence. If they can tax you, then you are their slave. You're forced to work for them for nothing. It's becoming more and more difficult to be free, and it's interesting to note that the taxes they paid then is a pittance compared to what we pay now, and yet we're not revolting. All subjects over which the sovereign power of the state extends are objects of taxation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation. This proposition may be pronounced as self-evident. It's obvious. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything which exists by its authority or its permission. That's U.S. Supreme Court, 1819, McCullough versus Maryland. A subject is a slave. Taxation is forced work for nothing. That's what a slave is. You're forced to work for nothing. Gee, that's what a Federal Reserve note is. There's a lot of people forced to work for nothing because Federal Reserve notes are nothing. There's two ways to conquer and enslave a nation. One is by the sword and the other is by debt. But in fact and in law, such statutes are intended to be applied to those who are here as residents in this state under the Interstate Commerce Clause of the Federal Constitution and the so-called 14th Amendment. That's a summary of United States versus United Mine Workers, 1947, U.S. Supreme Court. This is the so-called 13th Amendment, the current one. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for crime where the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. Remember, that's Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. That's 10 miles. 10 miles square. And so they easily defeat that. They just make up these fictitious crimes. They declare martial law and then make up a bunch of crimes and then put on a show trial in their kangaroo court and then sell you into slavery. That's exactly what they do nowadays. He, the prisoner, has as a consequence of his crime not only forfeited his liberty but all his personal rights except those which the law and its humanity affords him. He is for the time being a slave of the state. Check out my other videos. Banks to Thieves playlist, Roman cult playlist, bankrupt corporate so-called governments, bar members 1 through 7, do-it-yourself how not to volunteer for the selective service in the draft, martial laws here, do-it-yourself no income tax, do-it-yourself free mail, do-it-yourself kangaroo courts 1 through 19, Canada Border Pigs playlist, bar members and their Satanic Connections playlist. If a man be found stealing any of his brethren of the children of Israel, and maketh merchandise of him, or selleth him, then that thief shall die, and thou shalt put evil away from among you. Those people need to be put to death, folks. I hate to say it. I'm glad it's not up to me. I mean, juries have to make those kinds of decisions. They need to be put to death. Need to stretch some necks. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. We, the people, are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who would pervert the Constitution. Tyranny is defined as that which is legal for the government, but illegal for the citizenry. A republic is the only form of government which is not eternally at open or secret war with the rights of mankind. What country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. That's what this video is about, the right to keep and bear arms. It's not firearms. It's not guns. It's arms. And the arms is what you say it is. The Constitution is not a document for the government to restrain the people. It's an instrument for the people to restrain the government. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. We got tyrants all over the place today. Governor tyrants, Congress tyrants, county commissioner tyrants, city tyrants, county sheriff tyrants, judicial tyrants. Genocide. They're setting up a genocide is what they're doing. If you think about it, that's exactly what's going on. Classification, there's 8 stages of genocide. These are the 8 stages of genocide. Classification, you distinguish people into us and them by ethnicity, race, religion, nationality, German, Jew, Hutu, Tutsi, etc. Okay, so you got to start classification. Symbolization, giving names or symbols to the classifications, distinguishing people by color or dress, and applying symbols to group members. Dehumanization, denying the humanity of the other group. Members are equated with animals, vermin, insects, or diseases. Organization, organizing plans for genocide, usually by the state, often using militias to provide deniability of state responsibility, and that's always crucial. They want to say, oh, we didn't know anything about it. Polarization, hate groups, broadcast, polarizing propaganda, laws may forbid intermarriage or social interaction. Gee, that sounds like lies in the media. Preparation, separating victims because of ethnic or religious identity. Death lists are drawn up. Property is expropriated. Extermination, the mass killing legally of genocide, called genocide. It is extermination to the killers because they do not believe their victims may be fully human. Denial, deny committing any crimes, often blaming what happened on the victims, covering up evidence, and intimidating witnesses. So we've got some of those stages already happening right now. Today, it's the unborn child. Tomorrow, it's likely to be the elderly or those who are incurably ill. Who knows? But what a little later may be anyone who has political or moral views that do not fit into this distorted new order. Or maybe it's someone that doesn't have a vaccination passport. It's not murder. Jews aren't actually people. It's not murder. Babies aren't actually people. It's not murder. He doesn't have a vaccination passport. Child sacrifice in 1515 and child sacrifice in 2015. It's interesting how the buildings are the same. A nation of sheep will beget a government of wolves. Terrorists. We got to make up a fictitious war on terror. We got to exterminate these terrorists. Do you know why the DHS lists returning veterans as a domestic terror threat? Because many of them have figured out who the real enemy is and they have the training to do something about it. That's exactly true. If fascism ever comes to America, it will come in the name of liberalism. Two enemies of the people are criminals and government. So let us tie down the second with the change to the Constitution, so the second will not become the legalized version of the first. Well said. Number of Americans killed by terrorists since 9/11, 33. Number of Americans killed by the pigs since 9/11, 5,000. The pigs are murdering people all over the place. They're terrorists. And then there's the sovereign citizens, the Sovereign Citizen Quick Reference Guide, published by the Joint Terrorism Task Force. Sovereign citizen activity typically involves criminal behavior that is generally nonviolent but has led to threats and plots against court officials and by the more extreme adherents. Below are some indicators that you have encountered a sovereign citizen during normal duties, and be a signal that additional precautions against fraudulent filings and personal harm be used. Presentation to the courts of voluminous motions that contain references to UCC codes, references to probate-type language, including estates, trusts, wills, and beneficiaries, reference case law that is outdated and irrelevant. So these scumbag, low-intelligence pigs are supposed to decide that a court case is outdated or irrelevant. It's only outdated or irrelevant. That's why I just file a bar grievances, okay? Because the bar members, it's always coming from a bar member. They're required to know the law. They're responsible. So you just file a bar grievance, and the Supreme Court knows who they are. Anyways. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. It's time to get unplugged, folks. All executive orders or regulations for property are slaves of the government and therefore a color of law. A color of law is something that looks like law but isn't. It's a felony to violate your rights under the color of law. They can violate your rights as long as they claim good faith. Tell them it's a felony and have witnesses. That's all you can do. You got to build a case against them. The greatest tyrannies are always perpetrated in the name of the noblest causes. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms as a last resort to protect themselves against tyranny and government. That's why I send out my nasty grams. You want a piece of me? You just name a date, time, and location. I'll come armed. We'll settle it for once and for all. You fucking cowards will never take me up on that because you're cowards. Don't get me going. You're going to get me going here. Rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. We're in the final stages of a communist takeover, and we need to be prepared for anything. Remote viewers and futurists have said that for years that there'll be a point in time when there are riots in every major city and a great nation will disappear in one day. The Bible says in 1 hour. Then there'll be wars between the states. Providence favors the prepared. It's well known that the Chinese have about 50,000 troops in Canada. And there's a YouTube video where some guy was traveling in Mexico. It's about a year ago, I think. It's been a while. It's about a year ago or so. Anyways, this guy was traveling in Mexico, needed to take a potty break. So he pulled off the side of the road, went off into the trees, into the jungle to take a whiz. And there's a bunch of tanks in the jungle with Chinese markings on them. So, it could come to a kinetic war. The interesting thing is, and I think Cliff High is right. Cliff High says that the Chinese have no idea what they're getting into. And what'll happen is that we're a bunch of old farts and we don't particularly like our government. And we're armed. They've never confronted someone that's armed and able to defend themselves, and so they're going to have a problem. And so, anyways, I guess we'll see. Hopefully, it doesn't happen, but you got to be prepared in case it is. Think about it, and that's where the right to keep and bear arms comes in. Wondered why Antifa seems so familiar? Well, the Nazis hated individualism, hated free speech, hated free markets, hated elections, and approved violence. The communists hated individualism, hated free speech, hated free markets, hated elections, and approved violence. And the Antifa hated individualism, hated free speech, and hates free markets, hates elections, and approves violence. Gee, sounds like a communist takeover, doesn't it? There's no difference between communism and socialism, except in the means of achieving the ultimate end. Communism proposes to enslave men by force, socialism by vote. It's merely the difference between murder and suicide. Ain't that the truth? It's the duty of the patriot to protect his country from its government. Any society that would give up a little liberty to gain little security or maybe safety will deserve neither and lose both. Sacrificing freedoms for promises of safety and security is central to the worship of all false gods, and like all false gods, the sacrifices will never be enough because they're a false god. Armed citizen, the original Homeland Security. Second Amendment, defending my right not to be a victim since 1791. If a law is unjust, a man is not only a right to disobey it, he is obligated to disobey it. Gun control, restricted to use in movie theaters, shopping malls, high schools, and universities. Gun-free zone, Attention criminals. This is a personal defense-free zone. All law-abiding citizens at this establishment have been disarmed for your convenience. Fact. You don't see mass shootings at Bass Pro, Cabela stores, NRA meetings, gun ranges, Army Navy stores, gun shows, gun stores, police stations. You do see mass shootings at gun-free schools, gun-free colleges, gun-free theaters, states with strict gun laws, countries with strict gun laws. Is it making sense yet? It means this building is a soft target where law-abiding people can't protect themselves from the violent intentions of others. Did I catch you in a gun-free zone? Hold on, guys. Let me check the gun laws first. Mass shootings in America. Who's to blame? The terrorists are coming. Turn in your AR-15s and hide your gun-free zones. U.S. citizens have privilege, but the people have unalienable rights, including the right to keep and bear arms. Wow, nice looking lady there. Like that lady. Exercising the First Amendment without the Second. Exercising the First Amendment with the Second. Kids are crying on TV. Give us your guns for the children. Fuck off. A free people ought not only to be armed and disciplined, but they should have sufficient arms and ammunition to maintain a status of independence from any who might attempt to abuse them, which would include their own government. Thank you, George Washington. Pope claims you're not Christian if you own a gun. I say he's not Christian. He's Satan himself, or certainly a Satanist. Certainly a false prophet and an antichrist. Democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Remember when the colonists stood in line to turn in their guns? Neither do I. China established gun control in 1935. From 1948 to 1952, 20 million political dissidents unable to defend themselves were rounded up and exterminated. The Second Amendment. This is so well, right on the money. Washington didn't use his right to free speech to defeat the Rothschild British system. He shot them. That's what it might come down to for us. I'm not saying it is, but providence favors the prepared. They say that there's more guns in the hands of the American people than there is in every army on the planet. History is a lie. Religion is a control system. Money is a hoax. Debt is a fiction. Media is manipulation. Government is a corporation. The system is a lie. Wake up. It's all an illusion. All that is necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men do nothing. Those who are skilled in combat do not become angered. Those who are skilled at winning do not become afraid. Thus the wise win before the fight, while the ignorant fight to win. I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Two enemies of the people are criminals and government, so let us tie down the second with the change of the Constitution so the second will not become the legalized version of the first. Well, folks, in a lot of cases, the second has become the legalized version of the first. I came into this world kicking and screaming while covered in someone else's blood. I have no problem going out that way. Two idiots offended by the First Amendment were quickly introduced to the Second Amendment. Welcome to Texas. Gun nuts, protecting your liberties since 1775. Why do I need a gun? Like an AR-15? Actually, it's an arm. It's not a gun. It's an arm. It's not about need. It's my Second Amendment right to own such an arm. But assault weapons aren't necessary for hunting. First of all, it's not an assault weapon. It's an arm. And secondly, the Second Amendment isn't about hunting. It's about defending liberty for tyranny. So you're worried that a tyrant is going to take away your guns and your liberty? No, actually, I'm not, because we have the Second Amendment. Home protected by a high-speed wireless device. I have an army of over a dozen U.S. states. We have millions of rednecks who'd love to meet them. .50 caliber handgun for when there's a burglar behind the refrigerator at your neighbor's house. Finally, like and share. A well-dressed Walmart shopper. Yes, I'll say that's for sure. Definitely a well-dressed Walmart shopper. Oh, I like that. Properly dressed teacher. There we go. I like that. If trouble kicks down your door, light it up like a Christmas tree. Teach your daughters to shoot because the restraining order is just a piece of paper. Right on. In the state of Virginia, firearm sales went up 73% and violent crimes went down 24%. Imagine that. Why does anyone need an AR-15 with 15 rounds of ammo? Why does anyone need more than one square of toilet paper? Shit happens. Nice looking lady there. Give me liberty or I'll get up and get it myself. Tyranny Response Team Life member. Once a guy tried to rape me. He didn't make it to court. Good. And screw with the UN. Matter of fact, screw the UN. Right on. Screw the UN. Oh, nice ladies. 3 women who won't be getting raped by Syrian refugees. Ain't that the truth? Oh, I like that tan line. Texas tan line, eh? Nice cheeks. Protection. A gun in the hand is better than a cop on the phone. Ain't that the truth? Nice lady. Will work for ammo. Wow. Like that girl. Welcome to my home. That door you just kicked in was locked for your protection, not mine. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but hollow points expand on impact. Mama taught me that a lady never uses her fist to settle an argument. which is why my daddy taught me how to fire a gun. That's why I go after the bar members, because they're the ones that are responsible for it. Freedom has a nice ring to it and a bit of recoil. I would much rather explain to the police why an intruder in my home has a hole in his chest than to have to explain to my loved ones why I was raped and murdered. A true story from Houston Herald, Houston, Texas. Last Thursday night around midnight, a woman from Houston, Texas was arrested, jailed, and charged with manslaughter for shooting a man 6 times in the back as he was running away with her purse. The following Sunday morning, the woman was called in front of the arraignment judge, sworn in, and asked to explain her actions. The woman replied, "I was standing at the corner bus stop for about 15 minutes waiting for the bus to take me home after work. I'm a waitress at a local cafe. I was there alone, so I had my right hand on my pistol and my purse hanging on my left shoulder. All of a sudden, I was spudding around hard to my left. As I caught my balance, I saw a man running away with my purse. I looked down at my right hand and saw that my fingers were wrapped tightly around my pistol. The next thing I remember is saying out loud, 'No way, punk, you're not stealing my paycheck and tips.' I raised my right hand, pointed my pistol at the man running away from me with my purse, and started squeezing the trigger with my pistol. When asked by the arraignment judge, 'Why did you shoot the man 6 times?' the woman replied under oath, 'Because when I pulled the trigger the 7th time, it only went click.' The woman was acquitted of all charges. She was back at work the next day. That's gun control, Texas style. America was founded by tough hellraisers, rugged citizens who evaded taxes, spoke strongly against tyranny, grew tobacco, brewed beer and spirits, and smuggled weapons. And it will be saved by those same types of people. Right on. Original assault rifle, banned from import, 1774. British attempt confiscation, 1775. 1776 revolution. Break it off in their ass. They're not firearms or weapons. You have the right to bear arms. If you want to be free, we need to be a nation of warriors. It's why it's called a right to keep and bear arms. The Second Amendment's my gun permit. Date issued, December 15th, 1791. Date expires, never. Okay, well, that's the end of this presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
If anybody has any questions, now's the time, or I'm going to end this. It's not a firearm. It's not a gun. It's an arm. and you have the right to keep and bear arms. Well, hopefully it doesn't come to it, but it's best to be prepared. Providence favors the prepared. All right. Well, I'm going to sign out then. There doesn't seem to be any questions. I appreciate you guys listening. Thanks for coming and listening in. And I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next week. And we're going to be talking about bar grievances and some other things next weekend. Thank you. See ya.